So yeah, we're looking at a winter weather event shaping up for tomorrow. Effective this afternoon, the National Weather Service has issued a winter storm warning for areas along and north of I-10 and a winter weather advisory for areas south of I-10 down to the coast. And that is for ice accumulations across the entire region up to 1/10 of an inch. And so that could definitely impact travel. One of the things that is a little bit different with this event compared to previous winter events that we've been through is that typically as the day goes on, the temperature warms up, the ice melts. It's mainly a morning situation. It's going to be almost opposite of that tomorrow, where the morning will actually be okay. We expect rain and liquid rain in the morning, and then the temperature is going to fall throughout the day. And so you will begin to see ice form mid to late morning into the afternoon hours and into the evening hours of Tuesday. So the morning commute tomorrow morning will actually be okay, but then getting home tomorrow afternoon is where we could see some ice build up, especially on the bridges and overpasses and those high flyovers.
Stick around. You know, as Jeff said, this is a different type of event, and it brings to mind Atlanta in the not too distant past, where people went to work or they went to school and then they got trapped and they couldn't get home. So I think at this point we are urging everybody to err on the side of caution. The school districts will be making their own announcements, but I expect that most of the school districts will decide to close, because one of the worst things that could happen would be to have all the kids at school and then have difficulty getting them home. As for the county, I've already talked to District Clerk Chris Daniel. He and the judges are deciding how to make announcements about juror service tomorrow and which courts might be open and which ones will be closed. Stay tuned. We'll have another announcement about that later. Likewise, on the county side, we are already encouraging all county offices to be flexible at least. And sometime in the next hour or two, then there may be a firmer decision about what happens to county buildings. Truth of the matter is, a lot of the county employees are going to be the ones that are having to deal with this emergency event, so they will have to be at work, and we understand that. So we're going to be looking at that situation. So I guess the bottom line right now is we take this very seriously. This is a different type of event, as has been said. You wake up tomorrow morning, it's going to look like rain, it's going to be cold, but then as the temperature drops during the day, then we could end up with ice. And for those who say, well, the ground's warm enough right now, it is, but the overpasses won't be warm enough, and even if they're treated, then we have the situation as the rain and freezing rain falls throughout the day, then the treatment itself gets washed off the overpasses and they freeze up. So we just want to be really safe, and I think the safest thing for most people will be, if at all possible, either stay home or plan to go home early tomorrow. So we'll have more later on as various decisions are made, but we'll be happy to take any questions right now.
Judge, we know obviously Houston doesn't deal with this kind of situation very often. How do you allocate resources? Because we know you don't have a lot.
Well, of course, a lot of the resources are going to be the responsibility of Texas Department of Transportation, most of the big overpasses, the Harris County Toll Road Authority, groups like that, and they're prepared. But you're right. And you know, for people who are from up north, and, you know, I've lived up there for 11 years, you talk about 1/10 of an inch of ice, and you think, wow, that's laughable. But it's really not. Overpasses freeze, and I don't care how much ice is on it, you can't go up and you'll slide down, and there will be all kinds of accidents. But our main worry is, like I said, school children being at school, not being able to get home, and parents being at work and not being able to get home. So that's what we've got to pay the most attention to.
Do y'all prioritize the overpasses, ones that are at a steeper slope? Do y'all put more focus on those than say the smaller ones?
Yeah, Texas Department of Transportation and HECTRA have their own prioritization. And of course, as was mentioned, the winter storm warning is for north of I-10. It's not for south of I-10, so I'm sure they'll be starting with the northernmost overpasses first.
Any plans to close those overpasses at this point if the weather continues to do what it's
At this point, I don't know of any, but absolutely. I mean, there's no question. We've seen that in the past where we had a very minor ice storm where TxDOT or Hectra says, no, we're going to close these overpasses because if they can't be treated to where they're safe, then certainly they'll be closed.
So definitely the most dangerous part of the day is going to be later on in the day, right? Morning, we're going to see not so low temperatures, but
Morning should be okay, but as Jeff said, starting about 10 o'clock, that temperature is going to start dropping. And the early reports we had were, or that I'd seen, was that the rain was going to quit in the morning. And it was a question of whether the rain quit before the cold got here. Well, now the forecast is the rain's going to go all the way through the day as that temperature drops. So it's going to be a very risky situation. And this is one of those calls, frankly, that people have to make. You either err on the side of caution, and I think that's what you have to do. You have to err on the side of caution.
What about an EOC activation? Is that in place at this point?
We are activating at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. Thank you for reminding me of that.
And can you just explain exactly what that means?
Well, that means people will be in working at their stations, and all the various groups, all the elements of responding to emergency will be here. Beginning at 6.
I'm sorry, this is, I guess maybe the third time in the past month and a half that we've had this type of situation in Houston. Obviously, it's rare. Can you talk a little bit about what that has meant to you?
You mean activating, or?
Yeah, and just wintry weather conditions here in Houston.
We haven't had one quite like this, I don't think. I'm looking to Jeff here. We've had wintry weather, but not any that pose the danger that this does.
Yeah, I think if you go back to December 7th and 8th when we had the snow, that was more novelty. The bridges were warm, the temperature was in the mid-30s, so we didn't have a lot of ice. A few weeks ago, we had some sleet down in the southern part of the county, Galveston County, and we saw what that did to some of those bridges and overpasses down there. This is a little bit more of a serious situation where we get this ice accumulation and the temperatures possibly getting down into the upper 20s while it's precipitating. And so that results in a lot more ice formation and freezing of those overpasses and bridges compared to the events we've seen this winter so far.
Jeff, does it make a difference if it comes down as ice or if it comes down as rain and then freezes?
Not really. The biggest threat would be freezing rain because that just produces a glaze across everything. But given the fact that the temperatures are going to be below freezing, sleet or snow also would accumulate on these bridges and overpasses. And even if you get sleet or snow, the traction of tires will melt that down into an icy layer. And so you start to lose the traction. And really, we're going to have to be careful, even after the rain stops and the temperatures continue to fall tomorrow night to the mid-20s, for black ice going into Wednesday morning. And that black ice is where the road looks wet, but it's actually a sheet of ice. And so that can be very dangerous even after the precipitation ends.
Judge, a couple questions. Is the county planning on having some extra personnel, emergency personnel, and what about shelters?
There's been no conversation about shelters yet. We will have our normal emergency personnel. I'm not sure what you mean by extra emergency personnel. We will activate our emergency operations center, which means we call everybody in. The county commissioners, no doubt, will be out with their road crews, and they'll be working. And then the rest of the county employees, it depends on the job. Some offices may decide to close all day. Some may decide to close early. And we're trying to sort that out right now. And the other question we're trying to decide is what about the courts? Because if somebody comes down for jury service and then they get trapped there, that's not going to be good. So we're hoping that the courts will decide to close for the day.
If you already mentioned this, I do apologize. Did you say Metro was running, or that's a city?
I have not heard anything about Metro. I'm sure they'll be making an announcement. My guess is they would be running in the morning, and then they would make a decision at what point to stop if they made that decision. But I believe the school districts are going to be making their decisions very quickly. We may have something a little bit later on. Otherwise, it's really kind of odd. You know, you walk in, you're wearing a short sleeve shirt, and you're talking about ice tomorrow. So probably tomorrow I won't be wearing a short sleeve shirt. But thank you for being here.